Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Hello and welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything, where we give you the tips, scripts, stories, and steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. I'm so honored to be your host, Dr. Robyn Silverman, child and teen development specialist, author, and speaker, and most importantly, parent of two great kids who give me the opportunity to love, learn, and grow every single day, whether I want to or not. Believe me, I get it. It's not always easy, but we're in this together, and we have some great people helping us along the way. Now, before we launch into today's podcast, let me first say thank you so very much for all these 5-star reviews we're getting on iTunes. Thank you so much. Please keep them coming. Thank you to some of the latest, Robin Dini, for declaring that this is a great resource for parents, to Philly Girl 2, who said every topic is mission critical to raising a healthy family and healthy community and society. People think communication should be easy, but it's all in the perspective. Dr. Robyn gives you the tools to do it right. And one more, DJ Hart, who wrote, Dr. Robyn Silverman makes it easy to understand and discuss even the trickiest of subjects. A family is in our near future, and these conversations help us believe that we can do this. Thank you for providing attainable information and realistic solutions. Well, wow. Thank you very much to our amazing listeners. You are amazing, and you're so awesome to keep coming back week after week and getting the information that you need to connect with your children in your life. As parents, as teachers, as coaches, please keep those 5-star reviews coming. They keep people able to really find our podcast and get to hear our amazing guests like today's. Sports and competitive activities can offer an active path for children to get healthy, become self-confident, and strengthen their social skills. So how can we help kids handle the pressures felt by many young athletes? How can parents and coaches provide kids with the best shot at reaching their dreams without somehow losing themselves? Today, we have the opportunity to discuss how to create realistic expectations for kids, help them to succeed, not just in sports, but in all aspects of their life, improve their game day performance, reduce the stress of dealing with their coaches, their ambitions, their losses, and what better but to get the perspective from a sports icon and a neuropsychologist who works with professional athletes to help us know how to raise kids to succeed in sports and in life. Christie Pearce Rampone is the most decorated American professional soccer player of all time. She has played in 5 FIFA Women's World Cups, winning in 1999 and 2015. In addition, she is a 4-time Olympian and 3-time Olympic gold medalist. Currently, Pearce Rampone is an active speaker, coach, and sports commentator. She is a sports mom of 2 girls and has coached professional, high school, and club soccer teams, as well as youth basketball teams. Dr. Kristine Keane is a neuropsychologist who has been working with professional athletes, physicians, and mental health clinicians for the past 20 years. Dr. Keane is an owner, developer, and clinical director of 2 multi-specialty neuropsychological private practices and a clinical director of the neuroscience concussion program at Hackensack Meridian Health. She is also the sports mom of 2 boys and a girl who play soccer, basketball, and run track. So welcome, Christy and Kristine, to How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Hi, Robyn. Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm thrilled to have both of you. I feel like just incredibly lucky, and I know all of our fans out there who are also soccer fans and sports fans, and we have so many coaches who listen to this show. I'm sure they're freaking out, so I'm so thrilled. Before we get into all of the nitty-gritty, for those who haven't met you, they haven't read your book, can you tell us what gets you up in the morning and what got you both so interested in helping young people to succeed in sports and in life, find that passion, and encourage them to build on that rather than focus on winning?
Yeah, I would have to say, like, being sports mom and through all our experience with myself playing at the highest level, as well as Dr. Keane on the clinical side and having that science background, we just came together because we wanted to help change the climate of sports. And, in the reference of it being way too emotional, and we felt like kids weren't really able to, guide their own journey to the sport that they wanted to play, and they were getting interfered, and there were so many distractions on the pressures and the anticipation of, maybe trying to earn a scholarship or win, certain awards. So we just wanted to take and help alleviate those pressures from the kids by helping to educate the parents along the way, because it's a fun process and it's a great journey through sports, but at the same time, it can be very, it's a lot of pressure on the parents to make sure that they put them in the right position to succeed. And so we're just hopefully through the book can help alleviate some of those stresses on parents.
Your book is Be All In, and it is so important that we are helping our kids to embrace sports, not just because the end game is supposed to be winning, quote unquote, but because of all of these great skills that they acquire, because of what it helps them to become later on in life, how it challenges their mental strength and their accountability and all those great things that you explore in your book. Can you first just tell us, what do you think it means to be all in?
Well, for Dr. Keane, we just felt that being all in was just being present in the moment, and being able to express yourself in that moment. And you can have that balance in life. Obviously, being a mother and playing at the highest level, like you can't be truly all in one thing. You want to be completely all in when you're in that, when I'm on the field, I'm in with my team. And when I'm at home, I'm a mom and I'm all in with as being a mother. So just being fully present at the time.
The term be all in actually came from Christie used to use it when she spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I'm sure you read her first story. And it really, one of the things I was so impressed about when I got to talking with Christie was how she really brought so many things to a team. She brought her family there. She was all in all spheres of her life. So she really had a great balance. She was still able to have a family while she was playing at the professional level, playing on the world stage. And she was able to balance those things. And, we wanted to bring some awareness and mindfulness. We teach that a lot to the athletes, to be mindful of their teammates, of their parents. So that's what all in, we get so focused on winning and trophies and championships and scholarships. And so be all in is really about like being there in all spheres of your life, not just teaching just technical. Well, we want to talk about development. Right. And how does the sport affect your family and your friends and your psychosocial development? So when we came up with Be All In, we thought that was a really appropriate title because it's bringing yourself and everything, all spheres of your life to the game.
Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. It's about being present, but also being aware of how your choices create consequences for others at the same time.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the role of parents in youth sports. In November of 2018, you quote in your book, and it was a New York Times article that talked about why parents behave so poorly during sporting events. The author noted that youth organizations are reporting increases in parents who yell and fight and threaten and harass coaches, referees, other parents, even players during games. And I wrote on the top of one of my pages in that chapter, what message are we sending to kids during sporting events, and what message do we want to send? So let's talk about the way we are communicating during sporting events through our behavior, through our what we're saying, through what we're doing, through our body language, and the message that that behavior sends, and what really we want to convey at the end of the day during competitions so that they are more enjoyable and everyone, including your own kid, gets more out of it.
Absolutely. We talk, you always talk a lot about role models in life, and a lot of people look at it has to be a professional athlete, but the true role models for your children are their parents and within their family, and how you act and the way you conduct yourself on the field and how emotional you get, your children are watching that. The athletes are watching that, as well as coach and teammates. So it's all encompassing on, a lot of times you don't really have to say much if you actually just observe and watch and are aware of your intentions out there. And that's what we're trying to make parents aware of, is like, you are the role model for your children and how you're acting and how intense you are at a game. And, kind of just self-reflecting and, sitting back and saying, what is my relationship with sports? And what is my child's relationship with sports? And does it compare? And that's where you have to kind of come from within the family and see that relationship and make sure you guys are on the same page when you step outside to go to an athletic event, to just make sure you're on the same page of what your child's getting out of it and what your family's getting out of it.
What would you say it's doing to the brain and that child's attitude when we are yelling at the people around us about how our child is playing, how the coach is reacting, how the other players are playing or not playing? What does it do to their psyche?
I think there are multiple ways of answering that question when we talk about neuroscience. One of the things that we often talk about with all of the yelling that goes on in the field is how the brain processes your attention span. So you're really dividing the child's attention span. So you have the yelling parent, you have the teammate, you have the coach. So the more you divide a person's attention span, the less able they are to perform. And we know that from, research on attention span in the brain. So we are doing that to our child. Then there's the other thing that we're looking at would be, say, your limbic system response to being yelled at during a game. So now you're playing from the emotional side of your game, because maybe you're upset because mom or dad are yelling negatives at you. And now you're playing, and you're not playing using your frontal lobes, which if you're relaxed out there, you're better able to access your higher order thinking, your abstract reasoning, which you need to play the game at a very high level. So you are affecting your child's brain and how they're able to perform out there. It's a lot of voices to listen to. We talk about, when you're on the phone, and your kids are small and you're like, I can't do two things at once. Right? So that's what we're doing when we're yelling. Yelling the negatives, and we talk about this a lot. It's an emotional game that you're gonna every once in a while you're gonna type a few things out. But if you're coaching and the coach is coaching, and then you have your teammates and you might have your center defender yelling at you. There's a lot going on there.
That is the truth. I remember when I was presenting on that very topic, and I got a big reaction from the coaches when I was talking about how a lot of parents like to coach from the sidelines and say, like the kid is trying to pay attention to the coach, but like maybe their eyes wandered for a second, and then the parent is like catches their eye, and they're waving their hands and stuff, and they're pointing, and they're like, pay attention. And you're like, that is like completely the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yes, I agree with you. And, our behavior does have a profound effect on our kids, not just because it divides their attention, but also because the children are invested in their parents as well. They're invested in the game. They're invested in their coach. And when the parent is putting that other layer in there, now the kids are feeling like maybe I'm disappointing my parent, or the parent's upset, right? So it divides them on another level.
To first, like your inclination is to pay attention or listen to or obey mom and dad first over the coach.
Exactly. Right. Most kids are parent pleasers, so then it makes it uncomfortable for them. Do I listen to my coach? Do I listen to my parent? Do I listen to my teammate? And it still that still happens even at the professional level, more so on the coach and the teammate. You're getting messages, and it's tough. Those are the times that a child needs to learn how to problem solve and like kind of handle those situations on their own. But it's challenging, because as a coach myself, my number one rule is you never coach on the ball. Think about like you're dribbling a ball, you're looking ahead to maybe like what your next move's going to be, and you have a coach yelling at you and a player yelling at you and a parent. Like, what decision are you going to make? It's probably most likely going to be the wrong one if you're telling someone what to do at that present time. All coaching and all like instruction should be off the ball. And that's in any sport, because the problem solving, it's too quick. You see something so fast that a player can't see, and then after you say it, then the player athlete reacts, they make that pass, it's stolen, then you see the parents' arms go up, you see the players, coaches, and then it gets more emotional, like didn't you see that? But you have to take a step back as a coach and a parent and realize, like, could you do that in that moment?
Like, yeah, so if you think about it, like, picture somebody going up for a layup, and mid-air the parents are yelling at them.
Mm-hmm.
And really, mid-air, what are you going to do? You've already made all the decisions.
Right.
Oh, really
It
valid.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
So responsibility and accountability, that's something that I like to talk about a lot. And I feel like I was just so happy to see it in your book. There are such important concepts in sports and in life. And I think sports sometimes gives an opportunity to exercise those kinds of things, responsibility and accountability, so that you can apply it to life. We want kids to do the job that they said they would do, take ownership of it. If it's not done to the best of their ability, not fully done, or not done at all. I really liked the idea of moving away from whose fault it was that something went wrong, but instead asking kids to look at their role in every situation so that they can look for solutions rather than problems. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, just, I think it starts at a young age of having the responsibility to, from the start of like packing your own bag to getting to practice on time, and not making excuses of why you may be late or why you forgot your shin guards. And it starts there, to realize, like, if you're going to be an athlete, you're committed to that sport. As a parent, you try to help, guide your child into how to prepare themselves for practice and a game, and then holding them accountable, because that's where it starts, and creating healthy habits for them to realize, like, how to prepare for something that you truly do love and are passionate about. And I think once it starts at a young age, you create good habits, and then you understand, like, and take responsibility for when you may make a mistake or when you are wrong. And it's a constant learning curve as well. Like, during this quarantine time, I'm coaching my oldest daughter, and we had Zoom calls and trying to still continue to learn the game because we couldn't be together to play. And the girls had to, text us the topic they wanted to address. And, my daughter did not text one time, and she did not get allowed into that meeting. And everyone's like, I can't believe you do that to your daughter. I'm like, but it's responsibility. Like, it was her responsibility. She was responsible for bringing up the topic. She didn't. So I held her accountable, and I didn't allow her into the call. And, she learned from that. And now, I don't think she'll ever forget to bring up another topic, but it just shows, like, I care about it, you care about it. Like, we have to do it as a team, and hold each other, accountable for your actions.
So Christy, what about in the situation where, and I've heard this before too, where a child gets to the field, or for other people who are interested, who are coming from the kids performing on a mat, gymnastics, martial arts, or cheer. We have a lot of those listening in too.
Right.
If they are coming to their sporting event and they find that they don't have whatever equipment that they need because, my dad has it in his car, or my mom forgot to, get my mouth guard or put it in my bag. What is then the answer to that? Because it's very easy for kids to not only blame parents, but for parents to take responsibility for that as well.
Yeah. As a coach, when the athlete comes to me and does accuse their parent, I always come back with the same response. I didn't realize that your mother or your father was on this team. And they're like, they look at you and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, well, did they forget their shin guards? Like, they're supposed to be playing, the same thing. Like, in an individual sport athlete, whether they forgot their tennis racket or their equipment, it's the same response of, like, it kind of catches home with the athlete a little bit, like, because there's no response back to that question. It's like, okay, now I have to be responsible for my own equipment. Right. Same thing with, like, forgetting their water. That's a huge part of being prepared for the sport, because you have to stay hydrated, especially when you're outside in the heat, as well as, any athlete. And, you just have to make sure, like, you do truly make sure you have that communication with the athlete, because, they have to prepare themselves, because mommy and daddy are not always going to be there.
So you want them to be able to say, not necessarily blame themselves, but to be able to say, it is my responsibility. I forgot my water. And the next time I will make sure I put it by the door and take ownership of that, instead of asking my mom to fill it and bring it to the car.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because it's their love, right? They're the ones that are committing to the sport. So they should be the ones that are preparing themselves, because they have to learn how to prepare themselves. Because like we do in school, I always go back and reflect back to, your schoolwork. You prepare yourself for your test, and you have to, go over the work that you learned in school in order to pass that test. And it's the same thing in sports, and it's going to be the same thing after sports. And it's trying to find your identity. And you don't want your identity just to be who you are on the soccer field, on the mat, in the court. Like, you want to have that identity outside, and those great habits and those good routines will help maintain who you are in the latter part of your life.
That's a meme. Thank you. That was beautiful. That was beautifully said. We talk a lot about mental toughness also in sports, and you guys have a chapter on mental toughness, and I really appreciated that. We all need to learn how to be mentally strong. You talk about positive thinking and self-efficacy, as well as specific strategies that help build mental toughness in kids. And let's live there for a moment. Tell us, as parents and as coaches, how can our listeners then build mental toughness in our kids? Like, what are the practices perhaps that they can use in order to help kids cope with the emotional frustrations that come with playing sports and dealing with many life situations?
One of the primary things that we talk about in terms of mental toughness is the self-talk and the mindset. So seeing wins and losses the same way, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. So we really dig into a lot of the thinking, talking about how, structurally and chemically a thought can change your brain, and how dire that is for parents to teach that. So we delve into specifically, like, not positive self-talk, like tell your kids a bunch of positives that maybe aren't true, or is a bunch of fluff that no one actually believes in. That you talk about things that are realistic for them, that they can say to themselves, and talk about things that, so you're not masking negatives with positivity. That you're teaching kids to see things as learning opportunities. So that would be the primary thing that we talk about. And then we get very specific about things like teaching them how, stop techniques when they are having negative thoughts. Like, a lot of kids don't realize that when they're having a negative thought, that maybe you can't control it popping into your head. Like, oh my goodness, this girl's bigger than me, or we're going to lose. Look at that team. They're so scary. You might not be able to control that thought that pops in, but what you want to teach the kids is you can control what comes next. So you don't have to keep having that thought. In fact, you can replace that thought, or you can change your story. So we talk a lot about that. Like, if it rains on a soccer field, that sets you up for more tackles. So that's realistic. We're not, glossing over something with a positive. So we talk about word washing. So not using the term anxiety and using the term excitement instead. So there are a lot of different strategies that you can teach kids, but it's really that mindset that we dig into.
Kristine, let's do a couple of those switchovers that you were just talking about, so that those who are listening can really put that to the test when they're coaching, or when they're parents listening to their own kids. So if a child is saying to themselves, like you were saying, like, I'm really afraid of this other team or this other competitor because they are bigger or faster or better or more experienced or more skilled than I am. How can we help them to switch that statement to something that is realistic, not fluffy, but at least realistic and not so anxiety provoking?
So talking about anxiety as being normal and real, and that represents your passion for the game and what you're doing, and that you can help them see it as excitement for what's about to happen next. So I'm excited to play some really good competition. We're going to play a great team. Let's get excited about that. We have the opportunity to do this. Or, nervousness as enthusiasm. So I'm enthusiastic about playing on a new team. That's why I'm having these feelings. And you can actually teach kids that the body's going to react the same way. So like, you're afraid to maybe play on a new team. Well, your body's going to react the same way when you go on a roller coaster, but you're having fun when you're doing that. So you can really teach them to see it as excitement, enthusiasm. This is my passion. This is normal. This is how I get up for the game.
So we might change something like, I'm so nervous about making a mistake, to I'm really excited about playing this game and trying something new.
Yeah, or I'm excited about this is going to give me new learning opportunities. Okay. Every time I fail, I learn something new.
Exactly.
So it's great to play difficult competition or new competition, because if there are fails along that way, then there's also teaching moments, learning moments.
All right, and as a from a coaching perspective, if a child brings up afraid to make mistakes, and I always come back to saying mistakes are part of the game. That's what makes it, enjoyable and fun and creative. Like, it's going to happen. You have your teammates around you to help and support. Kind of when you're talking about nerves, I always say, like, I'm happy you're nervous. I'm glad you're nervous. It means you care. It means like this matters to you. So nerves are really good. Like, I always got nervous before games because it meant something to me, because I prepared so much and practiced for the week that the games, I kind of had those butterflies, but that's great stuff. And kind of convincing them like that's a positive, not a negative.
Because it shows how much you are invested and how much you care.
Absolutely.
So let's build on that just a little bit more with this idea of making mistakes, because in the book, you guys actually say all sports are made up of mistakes, and you repeat it twice.
Yes.
So I love that. And yet many times sports seem to be made up of kids being told what they did wrong on the field or on the mat or in the court by their parents. So let's talk about chatting on the car ride home, because this is, you're in this closed vehicle, and it is often very tempting for parents who have been watching, know their kid is really invested, they want to perform well. Give us the do's and don'ts of what to say and what not to say right after your child has been competing in an event when you're in the car.
So one thing that we want parents to consider is perhaps no game discussion on the way home if it creates family conflicts. So kids come off the game, come off the field, come off a court in that fight or flight mode a lot of the time, whether it's a win or a loss. So emotions run real high after a game. So many kids are not thinking rationally after a game, and they need time to heal from the field. And a lot of parents don't give their kids that time because they're so excited and they want to hear what the coach said, or they want to ask why they didn't pass the ball or why they didn't take that shot. But for many kids, it's not the time. There needs to be this space where the child can heal and restore to their parasympathetic nervous system, or in other words, calm down, relax, and be able to think rationally about the game. And for some kids, it means the 24-hour rules, talk to them the next day about it. Some kids are excited to talk about the game. So we always talk about each kid's going to be very different after a game. They might be passionate and want to speak to parents, but a lot of kids do need that time. So just having a little bit of space when they get into that car can really make a difference in terms of the kind of conversation you'll get to have. You get a lot more out of your kid if you could give them a little bit of space.
So Kristine, then in that case, like, here's a tempting situation. Your child gets in the car, their emotions are running high. They feel like they cost the game, the competition, whatever. And they say, I don't know what I did wrong. Now you've just been watching them. Now, what do you say?
You know exactly
instead?
what they've done wrong.
Right? Because you know exactly what happened. So now the temptation is there, because it's almost like, you've been led to this conversation. So what do we do instead of launching into this critique of what exactly happened from your point of view.
So from my point of view, that's the time to kind of take a temperature on their emotions. So, let's say they did miss the penalty kick, or they did, do something that helped the team lose the game. And maybe there's a teaching moment there, but if you see that your child is very emotional, that could be the time to just reflect on their feelings and let them talk about it. So what did that feel like for you? You seem so upset. What went on out there? If they want to talk about it, let them talk about their feeling. Let them emote without having that reaction or that response right away.
Because they're probably not asking for your advice in this moment, right?
No. Or they're looking for your validation, like
the validation, yeah.
There are other teammates out there. It's not all about what you just did. You all lost the game, or and they might be looking for that. But really, again, I keep calling it space, which is kind of,
it's like a transitional moment. Like it's a transitional moment from the field to the car, and that's like kind of their space in the car to express themselves. And I always say it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. Like you have put so much work into it. So if you are upset about a game, that's okay. But I always say you have the car ride to get over it. You have the car ride to kind of think about it and reflect on it. And then once we get into our next transition moment, like whether it's getting back to the house or going somewhere else, like we have to move on, and then we can revisit what just happened. And I always, say to my girls is, you can reflect back on practice on Tuesday with your coach, maybe find out ways that you could have done something better, or how you could have helped the team better. And I always make it about their individual commitment to the team and maybe what happened on the field, and not allowing the conversation to draw towards other teammates or blaming refs or blaming coaches, because the game there's a lot of minutes in a game, and we can't just reflect on one moment. There could have been so many great moments, but they don't want to hear about that. They're just funneling into maybe that negative moment, and we have to make them aware there's so many other great things that happened in the game, and that we can reflect and talk about it at a later time.
On their moment or their mistake. So you want to get
as well as parents.
As well as parents. Right.
So Christie, I've heard before from people in sports that really our role as parents after the game is to simply say, I love watching you play. What do you think about that? Do we have more of a role than that, or is that good advice?
I think it depends. It's family per family. I really don't think there's like that one size fits all. It depends on your relationship with sports and the understanding of the game, the awareness of your child, and it goes from there. So like my conversation on the car ride home could be different than Dr. Keane's, just because of the awareness of the game. But within anything, there's going to be emotion, but the conversation has to only be on what you've learned or what the takeaways from the game should be, not on getting away from blaming, teammates, coaches, and refs, because I think that's where the emotion gets crazy, and then it interferes with relationships with your child and maybe their other teammates. If you're constantly talking about another athlete on their team, or if you're constantly talking negative about their coach, they're not going to trust that process. Right. And the whole thing is a journey. And so if you can get to see the big picture of, maybe, the teammate that was being more vocal or like was upsetting in the game, you don't know what was going on with their life. Like kind of pulling your child away from the actual game in itself and making them aware of like, there's more out there in life than just, the game of soccer, basketball, whether, obviously gymnastics, like just making them like kind of human to realize like, hey, like maybe she just was having a bad day or he was having a bad day, but having those like thoughtful conversations, I think takes away, the wins and losses and the emotion behind it sometimes.
So having the confidence to get back up and try again is something that we often say, but isn't easy. We all know about, as we talked about before, that inner voice inside our heads. And it often tells us things like we're not good enough and smart enough and fit enough or thin enough or buff enough or whatever else it's yapping into our inner ear, especially when we're competing, and we're often fraught with competition and comparisons.
Right.
So tell us how we can help kids shift what they are thinking and saying to themselves in those moments when they are looking at everybody else, feeling like they're not enough, and dealing with mistakes and failure and frustration, and maybe even several bad competitions in a row. Now they're building up that story we were just talking about how they just suck. So how can we help them to build that confidence even while all that is happening and they're comparing themselves to everyone else?
Yeah, confidence is what makes or breaks us, right? And what I've learned through my experience is that you're really, truly the only person that can take away that confidence. And when you can learn and how to adjust and adapt to that inner voice, and realizing it's okay that the inner voice can be negative at times and that your confidence is hit, but then you truly make that final choice and how you want to react to maybe those negative inner voices, and just not, like, trying not to compare yourself to others. And I say this to my athletes all the time, like, no two players play the game alike, see the game, have the same athletic ability. So you're individually trying to grow and get better individually for yourself internally. And once you start comparing yourself to others, it just leads to lack of confidence, even depression, like, always wanting to be something you're not. Like, just be okay with who you are, and you're trying to adapt and grow to make yourself better and the players around you when you're on a team sport. So it's building that acceptance of yourself and always trying to continue to learn and grow with the game, because your role is constantly changing. Every year your role can change on the field. And I've experienced that throughout my career, and it's something that I've grasped on probably a little later than I wished, but at least I acknowledged at one point I was comparing myself to too many other athletes, and that wasn't fair on myself. And I realized it was such a distraction to who I truly was on the field. And when I learned to just embrace who I was and like my strengths and weaknesses, I became the best player that I could be for my team.
I seem to remember one of the stories in your book about a child who was like not understanding why he wasn't being played, kept being like sort of taken out of the game. And then there was an approach to the coach, and it turns out that the coach had very high views of this child, and was trying to build his mental toughness this like whole time. It wasn't about the fact that he wasn't playing well. It was that the coach was really focused on helping that child to gain that strength and that mental strength and to get emotionally strong. So I think that's really interesting. What you're saying is that our role changes, but even it's not just a role, it's actually like even what we need to work on at that particular time, right?
Right. And then also, how does the parent react to the lack of playing time? And then that's going to affect the child's confidence as well. So we carefully place that story in the book to teach the idea that sometimes coaches are doing things to a team, to a child, that may look one way to you, but they may have a whole different plan or strategy that you're not aware of.
Right.
And then, a lot of times they say like the playing time affects the parents more than the children. And then your confidence comes from your self-talk, your inner dialogue, and your inner dialogue is formed from a very young age by the primary stakeholders, your parents, the people around you. And then that goes back to, our earlier discussion of what are you saying to your child while they're playing or when they get in the car after? And are you critiquing them? Because then they become their own biggest critic, So you are part of that problem. Obviously there's nature and nurture, but just to raise awareness of, what is the coach doing? Maybe they're not giving them playing time because they're at that moment teaching them something else, like mental toughness.
Right. It's a matter of
these kids now interpreting what's going on through your lens as a parent,
Right.
which may be incorrect. So
Right.
it's important then, as you mentioned in the book, for that child to then be curious and be accountable and be the ones who step forward and speak up for themselves. In that case of that story, though, he really wasn't getting the answer, and the parents did come to the coach, but instead of being accusatory, they took a different approach. What's the approach that you think that parents should take if they aren't understanding a strategy that the coach is taking and they want to understand it better?
Yeah, first you have to see is like, what is the end game for a parent putting their child in sport? Is it just primarily winning? Is it just for like success for like, a scholarship? There's so many different ways you can succeed in sports with other than just winning. And I think that's where parents become uneasy with, like Dr. Keane said, maybe the playing time, or unaware of the approach of the coach. From the coaching aspect, which I've been on the field, for over 20 years, like there's so much that goes on the training pitch, and the environment that the child creates throughout the week to maybe lessen or gain more playing time. I'm very super open with my athletes. Like, you have to earn it. Like you're only as good as your last game. So when you show up on, over the week, like you still have to continue to grow and get better. And from like eye roll, you might not get a lot more playing time, or like just the way you're treating maybe another teammate, with like lack of respect of maybe the game plan, or not buying in. Like, it's a part of like a growing process, and how to communicate with others. And all of that plays into the effect of game day and playing time. Because honestly, for myself as a coach, I feel like the winning is a byproduct of the development. And if I can develop the kids to problem solve and on real game time and real game time moments, make their own decisions rather than me screaming and yelling at them from the sidelines, like that's my goal. But everything that goes on through the week is included in who gets more playing time on that day, and maybe who's just having a better game. So it's hard because parents only see game day.
So maybe they should be not approaching the coach at all in many cases, and
unless
just let it play out.
I would say the only time you really should approach a coach is if your child is really emotionally unstable and having a really tough time, where you need to then interject and have an open meeting with the coach, because you don't want to see a child that is not happy and put in an environment where they cannot succeed. And if they're put in an environment where they can't succeed, the communication has to be amongst yourself and the coach. And if you can't come to a conclusion, then that's what maybe you look at elsewhere, maybe joining a different team, because you want to put your child in the best situation to be successful.
So if you could finish this sentence for me, the number one thing that helps kids succeed in sports is?
There's so many. I'd just probably say confidence, just being their true authentic self.
Instead of trying to bend themselves to what you think everybody else wants to see or wants you to be.
We always say attitude is everything.
Right. We want
like I always say, like, you are good enough. If a child could just keep saying that to themselves and eliminate all the other distractions around them. So that when they step on the field, it's like, you are who you are today. Go out and just enjoy it, have fun, take what you've learned, try to implement it on the fields. If there's a loss or mistakes, you work on it the next day, and you just try to become better each and every day.
Give us your top tip. What do you want people to come away with after listening to what we're talking about, after understanding the principles that you talk about in the book about how to succeed in life and in sports? What would you say is the top tip? Each one of you can take a stab at that one.
I would just say, like, trust and establish the process between the parent and the child, and just enjoy the journey, because it doesn't happen overnight. Success doesn't come, and everybody's path to success looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would say taking the time out to figure out what your family goals and your family values are, because it is so easy to get swept up in the youth sports culture, especially if you have a child that's talented. And we get into spending a lot of family time, resources, energy, emotions, finances into youth sports. And we can get swept up in that and not look at, not evaluate whether that's aligned with what our original intention was for our children and our family.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For some families, 5 practices a week, 4 games over the weekend, splitting up is exciting and fun. For other families, it might mean that the third child's being dragged along.
Right.
So it's a really good thing to kind of take a step back. We talk about writing a family mission statement, and that everyone in the family is involved in looking at, how do we want our childhood to look like? How do we function as a family? What's important to us? Because it's so easy to be swept up in, we've got to do additional trainings and we've got to get on this higher level team, which means now we're traveling to different states. And is that what you want? And because at the end, the finish line for a lot of families is high school.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of families are looking for, are we going to play in college? And very few are going to play in college, and even a fewer amount of kids are going to continue on to playing professionally.
Right.
So that to me was one of the I guess most inspiring things for us in terms of writing this book and getting that message out. Like there's a whole script that we can get caught up in, or we can kind of be mindful and step back and say, are we all in for the reasons we want it to be?
I think that's really genius. That whole idea of the family mission statement makes so much sense, so that everybody is on the same page. I still remember asking my mom when I was younger. Actually, it was like, I guess it was maybe in college or even after, that I said, I did a lot of acting when I was younger. And I said, why didn't we go into New York City and have me do some more stuff, like, try out for Broadway and do it. And my mom was like, I had 2 other kids too. And for us, it was important for us to spend time as a family, for everybody to have fun doing whatever activity that they wanted, but not for us to, focus so much on any one child, so much that it negated what the other 2 were doing. And so, of course, that's going to be different for everybody, and that's fine. But it was an eye-opener for me as, maybe a young 20-something or a late teen, wondering why my parents made the decision that they made, thinking to myself at that particular moment, like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if you did pursue all this. And then it, was just eye-opening for me. And I think that idea of that mission statement, just to keep those values in mind, what it is that you're going after, so that your choices align with your goals and your actions, instead of it, as you said, get swept up in sort of the limelight of it all.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
Give us the resource of the week. Where could we go to get more information about you, your book, and the work you're doing?
So our book is available anywhere where you can buy books. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble,
Target, Walmart. We have a website, beallinbooks.com, and you can go on that website and kind of see where the books are being sold.
Right. Be All In is the name of the book, correct?
Be All In, Raising Kids for Success in Sports and Life.
Excellent. Excellent. It's a really enjoyable book. I felt like it gave more strategies. And of course, your stories, Christie, are so good, just coming from your perspective as an athlete and a coach, and Kristine, where you're providing this insight into the brain as a neuropsychologist, and really helping us to understand what's going on in that child's head as we are thinking and behaving and talking about sports and success in life. So thank you so very much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights and your strategies.
Thank you for having us,
Yeah,
Robyn.
thank you, Robyn.
It's my pleasure. Well, I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. So let's discuss them. Come up on Facebook, go to the Dr. Robyn Silverman page, or let's chat about it at drrobynsilverman.com or twitter.com/Dr. Robyn. I'm also on Instagram under Dr. Robyn Silverman. I'll be going back and forth with Christy and Kristine, creating memes of some of the great things they said. I know you probably heard them too, so that you can share them with your people and your friends, and they can see these great quotes, and maybe they would also tune into the podcast to hear what Christy and Kristine are saying, because I think it's really important as our children are engaging in sports, and hopefully, given this year how strange it is, hopefully getting back into the swing of things. We know we love that. And if you love this podcast, I hope you'll go up to iTunes again and rate and review it. It's so important so that people can hear about the strategies that Christy and Kristine are providing, and that they learn about the podcast and really become great listeners just like you. I truly appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today. My fellow parents, leaders, and educators, thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com. There's so many great podcasts up there, and the show notes to this podcast will be up there as well. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even on the days when you fall short, you've got this, you're here, you're getting the information you need. I know it's not easy, but never forget there's always tomorrow. Parenting is the ultimate do-over. Perhaps you heard something today that Christy or Kristine said that really resonated with you, that you want to use with your own children, that you realize maybe you did something in a way that wasn't the best way. That's okay. Just like sports, parenting, you can try again. We're going to fail, we're going to fall, and we're going to get back up, and we're going to try again. I see you, and I'm right there with you. And as there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet sanity, please know you are 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.